Well, look, first and foremost, I want to welcome everybody to another live training here at the OneSource Personal Development Network. Today's going to be an interesting one. We have a guest presenter today, and I would have told you guys about him a little bit, but yeah, I think you're going to be quite surprised. He's a very impressive young man, James Coursier from the Money Paradox. James, actually, I've been working with James for I think about 6 months now. He actually came to me as a client, as a referral from one of my other clients, and I have to say I've grown very fond of James. He's a very interesting individual. He's had the good fortune, or I don't know if you even want to refer to it as good fortune, but he's primarily he's achieved financial freedom at a relatively young age in life. But I mean, as we know, we talk about these things all the time here at OneSource. It's not just about money that we basically equate to success, but he's very passionate about his health, his relationships, very much into personal development, all the things that we hold very, I suppose, dear here at OneSource. So he's an interesting guy, and when he volunteered to come and present to us today, obviously, I was very excited, and I took him up on the offer because, again, I think we can all learn a lot from James. So, James, I tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to you. You should have control, I believe. I'm not sure. Well, let me ask you, James. I should have prepared with you beforehand. I apologize. Are you going to do a presentation, or what's the plan here?
The only thing is, you just need to make sure you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. What about everybody else? Can you hear him? Okay.
Yeah, I hear fine.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah, I can hear him.
Amazing. Success. Okay, great. Well, then I guess I'll start.
Yeah.
So I mean, firstly, Patrick said I volunteered to come on. I did that because, I got a lot of time for Patrick. Since starting with Patrick, I've seen huge value, huge improvement in my life. So very fortunate to have Patrick in my life. So this is really just a way for me to say thank you. And I'm sure everyone on this call as well is, very high value because you're working with Patrick. So, I just wanted to really start that, just give a real shout out to Patrick himself. In terms of what I'll go through, with these types of sessions, I like to keep them interactive and focused in terms of what you guys actually care about, because in the subject of personal finance, it's hugely broad. There are a few things that Patrick wanted me to cover off, so I'll try and kind of briefly go through those, and then we can go into Q&A and try to direct the session towards what you find most value. So firstly, I'll talk about my background, like why am I even talking to you on this subject? Why should you listen to me? Why do I even care about this topic? And then I'll talk about, the fundamentals around personal finance, becoming financially successful and financially free. I'll talk about investments in particular, so how to do well in investing, not just counting the pennies and pounds. I'll talk briefly about tax and how to minimize that. I'll talk about the FIRE movement. FIRE is Financial Independence Retire Early, for anyone that hasn't heard of that before. I'll talk briefly about real estate, and then maybe just talk about some kind of like resources and so on at the end. Is that okay with everyone?
Spot on, buddy. Very good.
Okay, great. So my background. So this is really important. I say this not to impress you, but to impress upon the point that, that I'm very much relatable. And it's really important you get that, because if you just see me as someone that's just great with money and, just naturally good at this and come from money, then I suspect consciously or subconsciously you're going to switch off from what I'm saying. That really isn't the case. I grew up, both my parents are working class, didn't go to university. My father left when I was very young. My mum sucks at money. She finds it very stressful. And so, let me just zoom this out. And so, oh God, let me zoom it back out because I'm just literally staring at a massive screen of me.
Sorry, I stopped to share. Sorry about that.
Oh yeah, cool, man. Okay, perfect. Let's do that. So yeah, so I grew up single mother family, both parents working class, didn't go to university, and my mum struggled with money really badly, a big point of stress. And I remember at a very young age thinking, like, this is not good. This is not what I want for my life. And I guess in some ways I was fortunate to be in that situation because it really struck a chord. I thought, like, no way. I need to go in the opposite direction. So I naturally became quite passionate about the subject of money. What is it? How do you get good at it? And so on. And then naturally focused on it. And then that brought great success. Became financially free many years ago. I'm 35. I'm already basically retired. And so what I spend my time doing is what I'm passionate about, like things like this. I focus on things that are important to me, like my health, like my relationships and so on. And I got there because really I spent time focusing on that particular area, came to understand it and then applied it. All right. So, if I can do it, and like honestly, anybody can. And what I realized was that the fundamentals around it are very simple. They're not necessarily easy, but they're pretty simple. When I started to get great success in this area, I started to notice that most people, I'm not saying some people, most people sucked in the area of money. And I couldn't understand why, because I'd come from such a rubbish background when it came to money that I would assume that most people would be doing better than me, but they weren't. I'm doing far worse. And even behind the scenes, most people actually weren't doing that well. So even though they looked like they were kind of getting by, a lot of people had debts or weren't really producing savings or weren't really on a stream. They weren't investing, things like this. So now I was thinking, why? Why does this happen? And I realized there was a number of reasons for it. Right? So I won't go into it in a lot of detail now, but I think Serena wants to join Patrick. Is that, okay, so number one, money is a taboo, so people don't talk about it. And because people don't talk about it, we don't spend time thinking about it. If you think about anything you're successful in this life, just think now. Think of one of the things, you don't have to shout it out. Just think of something that you are genuinely good at, okay? And I can pretty much predict for 99% of those examples, the reason is because you spend a considerable amount of time on a consistent basis working on it. It's like fact. You can't really avoid it. You can't spend a weekend studying something and then suddenly be amazing at it. It doesn't work like that. So if you're not thinking about it, if you're not spending time on something, you're just not going to get good at it. So the fact that money is a taboo means no one talks about how much they earn, what they're doing well at, what they're doing rubbish at. But you look at financially successful people, a lot of their friends are good with money. They talk about it. I talk about money all the time, not because I'm obsessed with money, just because it's a core part of my life. Like I do business with a lot of my friends. We talk about investments, things gone right and wrong, and should we do this? Should we buy our own home? And so I'm naturally constantly thinking about it. And because I think about it a lot, my mind naturally improves in that area. So secondly, it doesn't exist in our education system. So where do you learn it? From your parents? Well, unless your parents are very good at that subject, well, where are you going to get it from, right? It's getting better, but there's very few sources of good quality, actual personal finance, knowledge, material content in this subject. And then I'm trying to think if there's any others I want to kind of cover off. I'll leave it there. But there's like these fundamental principles why that was it. So the thing with money is, I think with most subjects, if people don't feel they're good at it, what do? They go, okay, well, I don't want to focus on that because that's not kind of my weak area. I'll focus on my strength, like my health or my relationships or, I don't know, history at school. But the reality with money is it's one of those areas where you can't really get out of it. Whether we like it or not, the way society is run is that money is like a fundamental area that you need to nail. because money is the main way we exchange value in our society. So you can't switch off from it, or you can, but it's going to have a huge ripple effect in the rest of your life. So I really want to make this clear. I am passionate about the subject of money, but I am not passionate about it because I am obsessed with money itself and compiling piles of money to impress people or because it looks cool and shiny. It's because money is a very important tool. It's not the only important tool in this life, but it's one of the most fundamental ones, right? You nail that plus a few others, then life is a lot easier. Yeah? Okay, so that's how I got into it, because I realized most people don't do well in the area of money. And so I wanted to make a difference in that space, fundamentally. I've been an advocate of personal development most of my life since I was 16 years old. So I've got a lot of seminars, read books, courses, things like this. And so this is my way, I guess, of giving back and kind of tapping into personal development, but within an area that I'm passionate about. So I do one-to-one coaching. I do a lot of content online, taking a little bit back seat in terms of content online for the last kind of year or so, because I'm kind of focusing on other things, my kind of retirement and my relationships in my life, my health, and so on. So that is my background. That's why I'm talking about it, and why hopefully there's some credence to what I'm saying. Okay, so the way I like to look at it is for money, to do well in it, it's not a complicated area. So there's a lot of complicated information you can learn out there, but you don't need to know that. And I think what a lot of people fall down on is if they're not great at it, they look at all these stuffy people in suits, grey suits, talking about money in a boring way, using very convoluted language. And please believe me in that you do not need to understand all that stuff. Like, the reason they do that is for two main reasons. One, because it makes them sound clever and it makes them sound important and that you need to use them. And two, that they're really into it. So they like talking about all the complex stuff. I love the subject. So I could talk to you for hours about lots of niche things in the subject of money, but there's no point in me doing that with you, because that's the marginal stuff. It's like going to the gym because you want to like get fit and be healthy and strong, but then learning all of these like really advanced techniques of supersets and pyramid sets. You don't need to know all that. You just need to know the fundamentals of like what's some good practices, good form when you're doing weights, how often to go, just basic stuff. With some basic knowledge about being in the gym, you can get strong, fit and healthy. Resonate? Hopefully. So there is no difference with the subject of finance. I can assure you 99.9% of the population can totally understand the fundamentals to becoming financially successful and then implement them. The difficulty mainly for most people really is the psychology of money. And there's a lot of like unhealthy psychology around money that is pervasive in our culture, unfortunately. And what I spend most of my time doing with my clients is addressing that. Yeah. Obviously, sometimes focusing on the fundamentals, but the main reason why people don't implement the fundamentals is not because they don't understand it, but because they've got all this other crap in their head going on that's conflicting with that. Okay, so just bear that in mind. A lot of people want to know the tactics, what to invest in, and so on. But yes, you need to know that. But if you know that information, you watch a video on something, you've learned something, but then you're not implementing, you got to ask yourself, why am I not implementing this? It's not because you're lazy or you're stupid. It's because, and I don't want to go too much on the kind of psychology things because you probably want to hear some tactic stuff. But the main reason why human beings want to do something but then don't do it is because of the human psychology as a human being. Our brain is extremely complicated. And it's amazing what it can do. The trouble is, the more complicated something is, the more risks you get and issues you get with it not working properly. Yeah, think about it. It's like if you've got a hammer, well, it doesn't break down. It always works. You just hammer it. But then you've got a really complicated computer. It's often got a virus or a problem. You've got to reinstall it, restart, all of this stuff. A brain is like 1,000 times more complicated than that. Yeah. So when you notice you're not doing something right, and this is with all areas, but certainly with money, don't make it about you and you're a rubbish person and you're lazy, you're stupid. Just recognize you're a human being, and human beings have a brain that's very complicated. It also has some silly things in it that get in the way. Just see it as that and address that. Yeah. So hopefully that kind of sinks into some of you guys. Okay. So fundamentals around money. So to become financially successful, right? So you've got to think, well, why do we want to be financially successful? It is not to impress our neighbor. It is to get what we want from life. That's what everybody wants. We want to have a successful life. But what is success? A successful life for each person is totally different. There's general themes that most people want, but the nuances of it is unique to that person. So it's really important you understand what that is. Okay. Now, to get that, it's like this is what you want from life, and over here is where you are. So it's really important to be to get what you want. You need to know what you want, right? Because if you don't know what you want, how do you know where to go? But it's also important to know where you are, because if you don't know where you are, well, then how do you know in what direction to go? Okay. Now, money comes in when you understand what is getting in the way of you going here, right? So you're over here, but to get there, there's things you need to do. So people to be in your life, have time available, money, maybe geographical location, whatever, right? For most people, money is one of the key things that is blocking them from going from where they are to where they want to get to. So it's really important before you start doing the whole money thing that you know where you want to go, where you are, and then what's stopping you. And then understanding where money fits into that. How much do you need? By when? In what way? Yeah? Okay. Now, for most people, the best way to address it is to become financially independent. What that basically means is that you have money coming in to cover your cost of living without having to work. Okay. Because when you do that, it means that all of your time is spent doing what you want to do. Okay. So for the vast majority of people in this world, what do they do all day? Okay. When you take away sleep, most of their time is spent doing a job, trying to make money, understandably, because within our society, money is the way we get by, right? So if you think about it, as soon as money disappears as a need, all of a sudden you go from, a couple of hours in the evening hanging out with your family, friends, or watching TV to your whole life being able to do what you want. Okay. And so a part of this is to really understand when these restrictions like money and stuff melt away, what will your life look like? Because if you don't paint that picture and really understand it, then what you're kind of telling yourself is, well, it will never happen. If you don't really lean into all of that, then you're kind of giving up at the first hurdle. And a lot of people, I pretty much with all my clients, I will always go through what do they ultimately want and how much money is actually needed for it. And most people think what they need is way higher than what they actually need. Most people don't really want for much. We don't need to jet set around the world, having 3 Mercedes-Benz in the carriage and a house in every continent. Most of what we want in life doesn't cost much money, in fact, or anything. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that money is not important at all. It's just that it's not as big as you think. Okay. And I say that because I think one of the main reasons people don't ultimately succeed in money, in the area of money and finances is because they think it's just too difficult. They've got to like make millions of pounds to become financially free. And therefore they just think, well, like that's never going to happen. So whatever, I'll just make a bit of money and just kind of get by. Yeah. So I tell you this because what you probably need to actually live the life you want to live is probably not that much money and is absolutely achievable within a modest amount of time. Okay. So, well, how do you get there? How do you become financially free? Yeah. So obviously you've got to cover your cost of living. And to do that, there's like 3 main pillars you need to nail to be financially successful. Okay. Earn, save, and invest. Right. And you've got to nail all 3. And what I notice with a lot of people is, you know, they've got like 1 or 2 areas that they prefer and they tend to focus on. And you see this across all areas. Like, you know, people tend to like to go to the gym because they're really good at that and avoid the things they're weak at. But even within an area, right, they're like, oh, I'm really good at saving money, but I don't feel comfortable going out and making more money. So I'll work on just saving more money. Trust me, that does not work. You need all 3. If you focus on just one, you are never going to become financially free, ever. If you focus on 2, you'll be financially secure, but you'll never become financially free. You need to nail all 3. And the beauty is, if you nail all 3, you don't need to be a master in any one of them. You just need to get have you heard of 80-20, Pareto's principle, Pareto's law? Yeah, so for those that don't, the argument is that, you know, if you think about 100% of the results and 100% of the action or effort needed to get 100% of the results, the argument is that you only need 20% of that potential effort to get 80% of the results. So, you know, because it becomes like a diminishing marginal return, yeah? Like as you know loads of information, to get a bit better requires way more effort, okay? So if the same with money. So if you kind of learn, if you get 80% of the results in saving, earning and investing, and it requires 20% of the effort in each area, then that's enough to do really well in this area and kind of nail it. Yeah. All right. So make sure you address all 3, but there's an order to these things. So there's a 4-stage order: earn, save, earn, invest. So what do I mean by that? First stage is you got to earn some money, because unless you're making some money, you know, it doesn't matter how good you are at investing or saving, well, you've got nothing to save or invest. So you've got to actually get some money, right? So that's like the first stage, right? So once you've got a job or like a business or something, making some money regularly, great, nail, tick. Second stage, save. So you've got to have financial discipline, right? So this means that consistently when you're making money, let's say every month, you can consistently spend less than you earn and save the rest, right? Now you don't need to like say loads and loads of money. Obviously the better, more the better. And there's a limit to how well you can do in this area, because, you know, if you're making £2,000 a month, well, even if you spend £0, you're only going to be able to save £2,000 a month, right? Not 10,000. But this is such an important area because a lot of people just really suck at just managing their money. Like I'd say most of my clients is the area I focus on the most. And like if any of you on this call or listening to this when it's been recorded afterwards resonate with this and like, oh, man, I just really struggle to like budget and like manage my money. Number one, most people struggle in this area. Don't make it about you, because if you make it about yourself and you beat yourself up and lazy and stupid, I can't like follow through, you'll just make it worse for yourself, because all you'll do is create all this negative emotion around money, right? That you'll just avoid it, right? And every time you see a bill come through, you'll put it down, throw it in another room, and then have a drink and eat some food to feel better. I see this over and over and over again. So let go of all the negative emotion around it and just recognize that, yeah, you struggle in this area and, and you need to address it. And it doesn't matter how good you are investing or any of the other stuff, right? Until you nailed being able to consistently save, right? Having financial discipline, the rest is pointless. Yeah. So this is an important point. If you aren't able to consistently save and manage your money, you need to nail it. You need to address this area before you move on. All right. And number one is let go of the negative emotion, drop all the rubbish. Yeah. Recognize that most people are stuck in this area. If you are struggling with it, it's just your human brain, you know, and you've just got some poor wiring there. You need to rewire your brain to make this better. And, you know, what you're doing with Patrick is like perfect, because what you need to do is you need to remove these old negative habits and install much better, healthy habits that reinforce good financial discipline. And without going into a huge amount of detail on it, the main way is to change the way you look at it. So most people think of financial discipline as sacrifice. Oh, I've got a budget. I can't spend all my money. I've got to like not spend it. So all this fun stuff I want to do, I just can't do. So I'm going to have to like just put it off. And that's just rubbish. I don't want to do that. So then they break, and then they go spend the money here. You're not doing that. What you're doing is you're saying, I'm taking a step back, and you're saying, right, what do I want now? What do I want in the medium term? What do I want in the long term? What is everything that I want in life? Taking that all into account, how do I want to manage my money? Do I want to spend it all? If you want to spend it all, crack on, spend it. But the key is, if you don't and you want to save, but then you still spend it, that's not sacrifice. That's just not following through on what you want. That's promising something to yourself and then not following through on what you're committed to. And that's a psychology problem, not a money problem. Think about it. Okay? So that's the main thing to address in saving. Once you've nailed that and you can consistently take your £2,000 a month and be like, okay, I'm going to save 500, consistently do that, then you're consistently able to make a promise to yourself around money and then follow through on it. Okay. Then it's earn again. The reason is because it doesn't matter how good you are at saving. All right. Another, you know, there's a limit to it, because you've only got so much money that you're making, right? And then, you know, there's beyond a certain point, you can't, you know, reduce your cost of living, and also it becomes very unpleasant and you're not doing anything. So the next thing to work on is multiplying your income, okay? And a lot of people, again, got really unhealthy beliefs around this. They just think they're like, consciously or subconsciously, most people have an image in their mind of like what they're worth, like how much money they can make. Yeah? There's been lots of studies done on it. So like I talk to some people and they're like obsessing about this promotion or something that's going to give them like £1,000 a month, £1,000 a year more, whatever. It's like, you know, they see it as like the only option and like such a big amount of money, but it's not. It's such a small amount of money. It's all like money is so relative. And I notice this because, like, for example, if you start hanging around with a load of people that make loads of money, you will start making loads more money. It's not like all the time. Obviously, you need to do some work. But what happens is within your world, numbers just start, like your expectation around what's possible just increases. So you naturally start looking for opportunities where you're making more money, for example. Okay, so I guess what I'm saying here is if you've got like limiting beliefs around this, oh, you know, I can't really make more than I'm making. Like I'm calling bullshit on that, right? Like everyone on this call can absolutely make a whole lot more money. It just comes down to whether you want to or not, and whether you want to put in the work to understand how you're going to do that. Okay, there's like loads of different strategies you can do it. I'll just briefly run through some examples, but like it's about like opening up your mind to what's possible. Yeah. So like for most people, they're like, oh yeah, but I did this job and like this is all you can get paid, and so like I can't make more than this, right? Whereas like, okay, well, you go do something else. I can't do that. This is all I've done. Well, says who? Go do something else, or go for a promotion in your current job, or go speak to your boss and say, look, I want to make some more money. I'm willing to add more value. How can I do that? Or you go away and solve some bigger problems in your company and add more money that way. Or obviously in what you're doing here, okay, well, it's like, well, how do I recruit more clients? Or how do I increase the value of the offering so that they'll be willing to pay me more money for what I'm doing, right? Or it could be I could go do the same thing, but in an industry where they value my time more. So for example, like the charity sector pays a lot less than, say, the retail sector. The retail sector pays less than the finance sector. You could do the exact same job, work just as hard, but make double the money just because you're in an industry where the value of what you're doing is just worth more because they deal in bigger numbers. You can go contracting from being an employee. Now, I recognize this is an audience that's obviously already independent doing this, but I don't know, you might have side jobs, don't know what your situation is. But I guess what I'm doing is I'm just expand your mind to like all the ways you can make more money, all right? Okay, so that's earn. So once you started to earn considerably more money, then what you're doing is then you have the ability to save far more money, yeah? So the second stage of saving is learning the fundamentals of being able to follow through consistently of spending less than you earn. So then when you earn far more money, all that is able to be saved because you've got the underlying discipline financially to save all that money. If you don't nail that second stage and just move to trying to make more money, it's like walking around with a bucket trying to catch water with holes in it. It's just never going to fill up, yeah? So you need to plug the holes. You need to have financial discipline before you start putting more water in that bucket, okay? Once you start earning considerably more money, right, then you can focus on the last stage, the fourth stage, investing, okay? Then you start to think about, well, how can I invest my money to make money from it, okay? And obviously that's a really important stage because that's how you get passive income. Because if you've made a whole load of money and that money is invested and is making you more money, and the money that money is, the money your money is making you can live off, well then you don't need to work anymore. And then you're financially free. And then you can focus on what you care about and making a difference in this world and spending time with your family and your friends and your health and so on, right? There you go, done, solved, right? So yeah, it really is as simple as that. So it's three pillars, 4 stages, okay? When it comes to investing, all right, I guess that's a good segue to go into that. All right. Now, again, there's so much I can talk to you about this, but the thing with investing is most people try to like learn so when it comes to like the stock market, people are like trying to like, oh, should I like read up on Apple or Amazon and like I'll invest in this, and they're like trying to stock pick. And it's completely mental because look, you're trying to compete with people that literally do this for a living. And the funny thing is, like study after study after study has consistently shown that professionals, active managers, active fund managers that manage active funds, but basically these people are like deciding what to invest in. The vast majority of them do not beat the market. Okay, so if the vast majority of people that do this for a living do not beat the market, like why do you think you can beat the market? This is not to insult you, it's just to be realistic. Okay, so like some people can, but don't get me wrong. But if you genuinely think you can, I'd have a hard look in the mirror and like, do I really think I can do this? And the other thing is like, you don't need to beat the market because the market is great in itself. Trying to beat the market is not only unnecessary, but it's a massive risk because you're spending all this time and stress trying to beat the market, which is already great as it is, to then basically roll a dice with really bad odds that will mean you'll likely not beat the market. So it's a complete waste of time. So then you got to think like, well, why did most people do this? Well, they do it because it's fun. It's like interesting. It's exciting. It's like gambling. So most of the things people do poorly in investing comes from human psychology, not from the investing itself. Yeah. Again, I would encourage you to look into this, like lots of studies and stuff, Study after study. Like, it's all human psychology. So this whole thing of like buying high, selling low, it's like, why would anyone do that? But people consistently do this. And they do it because when something goes up in price, okay, then you start to think, you get FOMO. You're like, oh my God, it's going up, it's going up. I want to buy this, right? Like, it's going to go up, it's going to keep going up. So then you buy it when it's gone up. And then what happens? It goes down. Then you start freaking out. You're like, it's going down, I'm going to lose money. Then you sell it. And what happens? You buy high and you sell low. And people hear this and they're like, oh no, I'll never do that. That's ridiculous. But most people do, unfortunately. So the way to do well in investing is the boring way. Most people are constantly changing what they want to do in investing because it gets boring, and then they just look for some other exciting, shiny thing. And that's how you lose money. Making money just comes to like the fundamentals. And the fundamentals are pick reliable, historically good assets that in the long term consistently do well. All right. And I'll tell you them very briefly. So the main two ones that have historically done well in producing good returns are real estate and the stock market. Okay. We'll put real estate to one side for a second. When you're talking about like pure passive income, so investing in like the markets where you literally just click buy on a screen, your money's invested and that's it. So there's like no work involved. Well, within that, I'll talk about the main assets. There is the stock market, bonds, and that could be like government bonds or corporate bonds. And bonds are just simply a loan. So if you buy a bond, it's like loaning money to the government or to a company. Then you've got commodities, which is like oil or copper or wheat or something like that, like raw materials. Then you've got gold or silver, right, like precious metals. And then you've got crypto. I don't think there's anything else. Yeah, they're like the main ones. There's others like niche ones, but they're like the main ones. Okay. So the main vehicle that makes money is the stock market. Okay. And you don't want to be picking things because unless you really back yourself. So you want to be investing in an index fund, which is just a fund that it just invests in the market. So keep it as diverse as possible. So like the whole world, all of the US, all of the developed world, something like that. And that's going to be like your core. That's where you make your money because consistently it produces really good returns. But it's a roller coaster because it's going up and down so much. So it's very scary. So depending on how much you're willing to handle that and how long you've got to weather that storm dictates how much you want to invest in that. Okay. Now you then supplement that, okay, with other assets that do two things: smooths out the curve and kind of de-risks it. Historically, bonds was the main way to de-risk because it loosely didn't correlate with the stock market. So if the stock market went down, then bonds didn't necessarily go down, and it's more stable. So your overall portfolio is more stable. The trouble with bonds, though, is, I won't go into this in a lot of detail, but because there's been so much printing of money, there's been a massive inflation of money itself, and so it's devalued. Bonds and cash, so holding your money, in that kind of environment, devalues considerably. So personally, I don't want to give you investment advice because I can't, because I don't know you, but I don't personally own any bonds. And that's because in this kind of environment, I personally see a huge risk around bonds. I think they will just devalue and there's not really any upside. So I don't go there. But there have been times where bonds have been much more attractive in a diversification away from stocks. So then you've got the others: commodities, gold, and crypto. Gold and commodities, these all are not fully correlated with the stock market. So if you invest in those things, then as the stock market ebbs and flows, then you're less likely for your whole portfolio to go up and down with that. So it smooths the the path. If you're thinking like, how do I invest in these things? Well, just do a bit of research. I can't go through it all now, but you can just invest in index funds in these particular areas. So you can buy like a gold index fund or a commodities index fund. So it's like you go onto like a platform like Interactive Investor or Hargreaves Lansdown or something like that, and you just find a fund like that invests in this thing, and then you do it that way. But yeah, if it feels all complicated, just do some research, try to understand how you actually do this in practice. But the fundamentals are stock market is where it produces the return, and then other asset classes create diversification. Okay. Bonds, gold, commodities, and crypto are all ways to diversify from the stock market. I personally don't invest in bonds at the moment because I think there's very little upside and a lot of downside risk. Gold and commodities are both, I personally, great at the moment because we're in very uncertain times. So gold and commodities tend to do well in those types of environments. And then crypto is a lot more risky. But I personally view it as an asymmetrical risk reward. So you can only lose the money you put in, but there's the ability for it to multiply considerably. I also see a lot of people all in on crypto, which I think is completely mental. And everyone I know who's done, well, not everyone, 99% of the people I know who've done this have just been constantly stressed and not made that much money. In fact, most of them probably lost money. And that's because the main thing that prevents people from doing well in investing is human psychology. With something like crypto, what it does is it magnifies human psychology when it comes to investing. So like buying high, selling low is like 10x with crypto. Because, for example, there was back in like January to March when crypto was doing really well, okay? Everyone was talking about it. Everyone, because I was in this industry, like everyone's talking about it, everyone's buying it, everyone's like going on and on about it. As soon as it tanked in March, everyone shut up. No one was talking about it. So think about that. Everyone was buying it when it was really high, and then as soon as it tanked, no one was talking about it. So either they stopped investing in it when it was lower price, much better to buy, or they'd sold. Yeah. So crypto, I think, is actually a great thing to invest in, but as a significant minority share of your investment portfolio. So never your whole portfolio. It's completely mental. But if if you feel like it's too risky and you don't understand it, or you don't need to invest in it, right? It's not like a deal breaker. Okay. So that's it. That's basically investing. That's like the hands-off approach. Now, I personally think property is like a way to supercharge investing. And the reason for this is because property is like a halfway house between investing and business. The money in property is made by investing, putting money into it, and then making money from your money. It's not a good place to start from scratch with no money to try and make money from. Just as a forewarning, all these property training schemes out there sell this lie that you can go in and with no money down and like make loads of money. That is false. There is no get rich quick scheme in property. You need money to do well in property. Okay, not a huge amount, but you need money. You need to buy a property, and a good one. You can't buy like a 50 grand house because it's going to cause you problems, right? So please don't go in it trying to do like rent to rent and like all these crazy schemes, because you'll just get spat out, and you'll be stressed at the time, working lots of hours. Yeah. So, but it is a good investment vehicle. If you're willing, if you want to make more money, if you want to do better than the market, don't try and pick stocks because that's a fool's errand. Pick a strategy where you can spend time developing an edge. And in property, it's far easier to develop an edge in property. The more time you spend learning about property, getting experience in property, your knowledge and experience increases relative to everybody else's, and you're going to get a better return. Okay. And there's fundamentals about property that it just means you're going to do really well, like once you get it. So for example, when you remortgage a property, you can unlock money from it, but because you haven't technically sold it, you've not actually realized that gain. So it's tax-free. So all your capital appreciation on the property is tax-free. Crazy. Two, you can leverage, right? So if you buy to let, you can buy, very simplistically, you buy a 100 grand house for like 25 grand plus the fees, because most lenders will give you a 75% mortgage on the value of the home. So your money is multiplied. So your like 30 grand is going into a 100 grand house. So if the house goes up by 10% from 100 to 110, you make a 10% return on the total value of the home, not the 30 grand you put in. So it's 10 grand on 30 grand, which is a 33% increase. Who's gonna like quadruple your money or triple your money when you invest in the stock market? No one. Then you've got to ask yourself, why? Why would no one do that within the stock market, but they would in property? And that's because the stock market is so volatile, but the property market isn't. So the fact that lenders are so willing to do this consistently on the vast majority of properties is a recognition in and of itself that the whole market generally recognizes that property is safer, more stable, and will appreciate in the long run. Otherwise, they wouldn't lend you the money. Now, that's not a fail-safe. You need to know what you're doing. You need to educate yourself. But if you're willing to spend time educating yourself and doing well, then property is just such an easy way to make more money and like supercharge your investment returns. But, it's not with no cost. You need to know what you're doing. There's risks involved. You're dealing with big numbers and stuff. So it's not for the faint of hearted. And the last thing I'll say on property is it's increasingly become more and more regulated. Okay, the tax changes, regulations on. And so before, people were just like accidental landlords and like one or two homes and then like made a load of money. Like that does not exist anymore. Yeah, unless you understand what you're doing, you're not going to make money. And it's quite a lot of work to educate yourself to do well in this area. So don't go in if you're just going to buy one or two. Only move into the area of property and educate yourself. If you're serious about it and you want to buy like a few, yeah, because the knowledge and stuff you need to do well to buy the first one is the same you need to do well in the 10th one, right? So it's going to feel like quite a bit of work initially. But if you do it and you're feeling like frustrated, just remember, once you learn the fundamentals and then you're like, you kind of get your head in gear and you're buying that first one or two, then it's going to be much easier to buy those subsequent properties. Okay, so that's real estate. Briefly, why don't we talk about tax? So, okay, if you're an employee, then there's not much you can do. You just got to lump it, and tax is pretty high in this country. It's pretty rubbish. The best way you can save tax legitimately is not being an employee, being self-employed, and it's insane how good it is. Like, so for example, right, like, okay, so if you earn like 100 grand a year, okay, as an employee, then you just get demolished with tax because you're like a high rate taxpayer, like 40%, and then as you earn more, you lose your personal allowance, and it's even higher, right? It's so much tax. It's really, really annoying. But it is what it is, tax. So if you're happy paying it, great, pay it. But if you want to reduce it, like if I earned 100 grand, okay, through a company, right, what happens is I pay like 20% corporation tax. But then what I get to do is all costs that are associated with making that money is tax deductible against that company, right? So if I need to travel for that work, or I need to like have some food while I'm out sorting stuff out, tax deductible. My computer, my phone, everything that's related to me making money for this company, tax deductible. When you're an employee, nothing is tax deductible. So that's the first benefit. The second benefit is that, okay, so money made into the company, just corporation tax of 20% rather than like 40%. And then when the money is paid from the company to you, well then the best benefit is that you can control when you receive the money. So even if you're making like, I don't know, 500 grand a year, right, into a company, if you only took out 50 grand into yourself, then what you're doing is you're controlling how much you're personally making. So you're keeping the income below the higher rate tax threshold. So you'll never pay more than 20%. You'll never pay that 40% because you're never making more than 50 grand personally. Okay. Then in addition, because you're receiving it as a dividend rather than, well, you can choose, you can either receive it as a salary or a dividend. A salary would be income tax. Okay. But a dividend is dividend tax. And dividend tax is like nothing below the higher rate tax threshold. It's like 7.5%. And that's after there's like an allowance for dividend. So it's like hardly anything. Okay. Now, look, if you're earning like 30, 40 grand, less than 50 grand, there's no real benefit, okay, because you're making so low money that you're already within basic rate tax, right? But as you make more money, that third stage, and if you're not right now, trust me, you can. Like anyone can make 100, 200, 300 grand a year. Like just comes down to whether you want to pursue it or not. When you start to make more money, it's much more important to be making money through a company so you can control how you're receiving that money. Also, the company can invest the money rather than you. So, you can invest it and then rather than having to take it all out yourself and then have to pay that personal tax to then invest, okay? You can pay money from the company into a pension. That's a way to take money out. Like there's so many like things you can do once you're self-employed, yeah, and you're making money through a company. And like, I'm just giving you like a flavor of the kind of things you can kind of do. But to really understand all that, like when you get into that situation, you just get a good accountant and then you talk to them, like, what can I do? Can I do this? And they'll give you those options and why they would recommend A and what's the pros and cons, and there'll be various like tax consequences of it. Yeah. But the key with all of this is choice, control. When you make money through a company, you choose how you structure your affairs. So for example, on my properties, like I have a structure where like some of the properties, the income is made into 2 different companies because of how I manage my affairs. Now, don't worry, there's no like tax dodging loophole. There's a structure because of how I manage the properties, and there's tax benefits to that. Yeah. So, but if you're just an employee, that just money comes to you, that's it, done. Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's tax. The FIRE movement. Financial independence, retire early. Now, I've got like a love-hate relationship, and that's because, in one sense, it's great because I am a big believer in retiring early. Because I just think like I see most people just zombieing through life, like like a rat race. Basically, they're spending most of their time just making money to live, right? So just like getting up, working all day, going to bed, getting up, working all day to make money. And, I get it, because obviously you've got to make money, and that's okay for a period of time. If you're doing that your whole life, like what life is that? Yeah. So like if you're thinking that this is going to be your life, then I'd really just I just encourage you to kind of really challenge that and be like, do you really want that? Do you really want to spend the rest of your life just getting up and working every day to make money? Like, obviously, like if what you're doing you're passionate about and you would do even if you didn't make money, absolutely crack on, like do that. Like there's 2 ways to be financially free. Either have money so you don't need to work and then do what you want, or be doing something that makes you money that you would do even if you didn't need the money. And then you're basically financially free because you're doing it anyway, right? But the second one's a bit harder. But anyway, so why am I saying this? Because the FIRE movement are great in really causing this initiative to really like question the status quo of working till you're 65, getting a pension and retiring when you're old and frail, to retiring early and then like doing what you want with your life. The thing with the FIRE community is they're quite extreme and purist. It's all about putting everything in the stock market, saving with an inch of your life, like, never, walking everywhere, like, going on holidays in your backyard, like, which is fine. If, for some people, they love that. But the thing is, for a lot of people, that's not what they want. And so they throw out the baby with the bathwater. They look at that and they're like, well, that just sounds like a really boring, stingy life. I don't want that. So I would encourage you to take the lessons that are of value for you. So, and that's what I try and do. Like, anybody can retire early on your terms, right? It's just like about, like, there's various levers you can pull. So the more you save, the more you make, the quicker you can retire. But then maybe it will take you more time. So the best thing to do is to think, all right, I'm at A, I want to get to B. What are the various things I need to do? The 4 stages. And then, put a plan around that and think, right, well, if I do this, how long is it going to take? And if it takes, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, and you're happy with that, great, just follow the plan. If you want to do it quicker or with less work or spend more time with your family or, I don't know, you want to change it, fine. You can change the levers that you pull. It's that you've got control, yeah? So it's come up with a plan that works, that you can see genuinely works, and then tweak it to make it more in line with what you want, yeah? Some people really want to retire as early as possible. That was for me. I was just, I was willing to do whatever was needed. So I worked very hard to do it. Not everyone wants to do that. Not everyone wants to work, 6 days a week, spend, 12 hours a day working to get somewhere quicker. I did. Other people want to do it more chill, but take longer. That's cool. That works as well. Don't try and do what someone else is doing. Do what works for you. So it's like, take the principles and apply it to your own situation. And then the last thing I'll say, in terms of resources, I think the main resource is Patrick and the system. This isn't I want to kind of bring it back, because the main 2 things you need to understand is the fundamentals, which are really simple. There's not many principles to it. I pretty much told you most of them, and a bit of research and so on will get you there. But once you understand the principles, to become financially free is actually implementing those principles on a daily basis, consistently, yeah? Because it doesn't matter what you know, unless you implement it consistently, you're not going to get anywhere. And that's actually really hard to do, because if you've been living a life where you're not really saving, or you're not making a lot of money, or you're not investing, you don't just overnight do these things. It just doesn't happen, yeah? You've got to completely change your habits, right? You've got to be like researching every day, or like be checking how much you're spending every day, or you've got to be like reading up about investing or whatever, right? You've got to move your attention to this new area that you want to do well in, right? And all of your habits up to now endorses a different way of living. And changing habits is difficult. It's not easy, and it takes a long time. And you can't be extreme about it, because if you are, then it's not sustainable and you'll fall over. So you really want a system that supports you in making those changes. And Patrick's system is a very effective way of doing that. So whether it's yourself, whether it's your clients that you're working through with Patrick's system, it's about kind of saying, okay, so like, what are the principles you want to follow? And what are the specific things that you need to be looking at on a daily basis that support this new approach, these new principles you want to be following? And if you do that on an everyday basis, you don't have to be perfect, but as long as you just keep coming back to it, you will get success. And like, the thing with money, right, is it's a compounding curve, okay? So it's like this. And most people understand what a compounding curve is, what's exponential, right? Okay. But the difference is most people understand it, but like they don't really understand it. And pretty much all financially successful people get this. And I'll explain why. If you see a compounding curve, okay, at the beginning, right, not much happens. So what happens is, like, people look at this first bit and they just think, well, like, what's the point? Okay, I'm going to get my £100 that I have in the bank, And then I'm going to like learn really well to like get a 10% return, which is like a pretty good return. You need to be like doing pretty well to get a 10% return. To what? Get like £10 after a year? Like, who cares? A whole year to make £10. And I need to know what I'm doing to get a 10% return. Screw it. I'm just going to have fun, spend £100. And that's kind of what people do, consciously or subconsciously, but they're missing the point. And the point is, okay, it doesn't matter who you are, everybody has to go through this compounding curve. So at the beginning, it's really shallow and not much happens. But you've got to go through the shallow bit to get to the steep bit. Okay? So when you're making your 10 quid in a year, that's not the point. The point is not to make 10 quid. The point is to go from 100 to 110 so that you can go from 110 to 121. So they go, right? To then start to get to the exciting numbers. And I saw it in my own life. I see it with everyone, like everyone I know that's financially successful, yeah? And the people I work with. Like the numbers I deal with, like even for me, I'm like, fuck man, these numbers are crazy. Like I can't even believe it. I'm just like how much have I got? Like how many properties have I got? Like this number, honestly, like someone told me when I first started, I'd be doing these kind of numbers. I wouldn't have believed them. But that's because when you start getting to the inflection point, the numbers start to increase rapidly. And I've already seen it. It's like each year that it just gets silly, it just gets ridiculous because you're getting a return on a much larger number. So 10% on £1 million is 100 grand. 10% on £10 million is £1 million, right? So that lesson you learn at the beginning, which is make 10%, at the beginning is only making you £10, but at the end is making you £1 million. Same lesson, completely different numbers, right? So when you're starting and you're like not seeing much, it feels frustrating, just remember this compounding curve thing, right? It's the same with anything. Patrick talks about it around like when you're learning something, right? Like the habit, the beginning, not much happens, but you've got to kind of see it through until it compounds into like bigger returns, yeah? All right, so I wanted to end on that to kind of make it relevant. I think the last thing I want to just quickly talk about, because I think, Patrick, you wanted to bring it back to their clients and how it relates, yeah? So obviously, like Patrick's system has 4 areas. You've got health, relationships, personal growth, and finances. So finances, like, you know, it's a quarter of the area. There's these 4 pillars. Now, Patrick said he noticed that some people on their reports had things that they were monitoring that didn't seem like core principles of doing well in finance, right? So I'm not going to like call out names or specifics, but like things that felt like they were making progress but really weren't at the core, okay? And I find this happens with most people when it comes to money, or all areas really. If people don't feel great at something, what they do is they take they're looking for something that feels like they're making progress, but they're not really. It's like, have you heard of like false productivity? It's like basically procrastination, but hidden, because it's like, you know, when you're like, I don't know, you're avoiding learning your language, so you go on YouTube and watch a load of like personal development content because you want to like do like feel like being productive, but really you're not. It's just like a way of like letting time pass. It's a bit like that. So to do well at something, you've got to go back to the things that actually move the needle. Yeah. And so what are they? Remember the principles: earn, save, invest. Yeah. So the kinds of things you want to be following on your Patrick system, it needs to go back to those fundamentals. Like, where are you? Like, what's the thing you should be focusing on? So either you're having something that, you know, matches to all of them, or so like, for example, if you're really struggling around saving, like absolutely one of them needs to be like a spending related one. So am I each day in line with my budget for the month or the week? Yeah, like that's like really obvious one. Or you know, did I today add, really high value in my job or to my clients? Yeah. Or did I make 5 enrolling calls for new clients when it comes to my personal development coaching? Yeah. Right. Or it could be, like, right, so I'm going for this promotion. So, today, did I spend an hour researching what's needed for the next role or for this new job I'm looking for, right? They directly to earning more money or better financial discipline or investing better, right? If it's directly related to those 3 areas, then you can't really go wrong. Yeah. And if you don't understand those areas, it could just be like, spend an hour researching investing or researching making more money, for example. Yeah. So if you don't know what specifically you need to do, then just allocate a specific amount of time to learning what you need to know. All right. I'll finish there and open it up to Q&A. Like, I'm conscious we've gone on a little while.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to cover off all of those areas that Patrick wanted me to cover.
No, you did amazing, James. Actually, just a couple quick things because we are running a bit long. But look, it was fantastic. It was very, very informative. I can resonate with a couple things you said there. First off, as far as the fact, it's about the people you surround yourself with. If you want to make more money, associate with people that make money. I know that's true for a fact. I know it's true with you for a fact. And the reason I know it's so true with you is the way that I've met you. That basically, I said at the very beginning, James came to me as a client from a referral from another client. You'll know who I'm talking about. I won't go into names or anything, but initially there was a young lady who started working with me, a very impressive young lady, still with me today. She's been there about 18 months now. She referred her boyfriend, very impressive guy, makes a very comfortable living like James. He's into real estate, into personal development, into his health. He referred James to me, who now is a client. And since I've met James, I think there's been a couple others from your group that actually, your mastermind group actually, that has joined me as clients as well. All of yous. And I've said this before to you and I've said it to the others. I think you really benefit each other because you have such a close relationship. You all do extremely well financially, but in the other areas of your life. And I know it's because of your association with each other. I think that's a real positive thing. Also, too, your whole concept as far as earn, save, invest. You and I have had many conversations about this. I couldn't agree more. It's it's almost identical to a point as far as what we tend to do here. What we do, guys, if you think about it, work away. What we do is we primarily, we try to maximize the money coming in. That's your earnings. Minimize the money going out. What do you do if you're maximizing the money coming in, minimizing the money going out? You save that money. You save the money that you're minimizing, that you have if you're left over from the money coming in. Then the only other thing is the growth. That's your investing. So that's almost pretty much exactly what we do here. We always focus on earn, save, and invest. Maximize money coming in, minimize money going out. Make sure that you save whatever's left over. And then whatever you save, you invest and you grow. So again, very same principles, but no, you gave us a ton of information. I was hoping that we'd get more time for a Q&A, but I tell you what, I'm just conscious of time here. So the one I'm going to ask you, James, and I apologize, I don't want to put you on the spot. Maybe would it be possible if I email out or let everybody know your details, or if you want to share them now, how they can get hold of you? If they have any questions or on anything, would it be okay if maybe they dropped you a quick email?
Yeah, that's fine. So I'm on Instagram at the Money Pat. So my brand, the business name for the personal finance content is the Money Paradox. Just briefly, the Money Paradox comes from basically, it is very simple to become financially free, and yet very few people actually achieve it. So the discrepancy between the fact that most people can achieve it, but very few ever get there, is that paradox, right? This money paradox. And so a lot of what I talk about is understanding why we get that discrepancy, because once you understand it, then you can avoid the hurdles that most people get into. But anyway, the Money Paradox, and Instagram, you can message me that way. I've got a website, themoneyparadox.net, Facebook, all the usual things. I've got on Spotify and all of that. But if you, I don't really use social media, so you're better off just kind of going on my website, and then through that you can contact me by email.
Yeah, fantastic. You also have a YouTube channel as well. You got a good few videos on the YouTube channel. Well, really well. I subscribe to your channel. You have some great information on there as well.
Yeah, I've got about 100 videos, so feel free to go on to that. So a lot of what I talk about, I go into a lot more detail there. So if there was a particular area that didn't quite make sense, you want to understand more, check that out. You can kind of search for the particular topic. That content is also put out in Instagram and Spotify and iTunes and so on. So, if you want it in a different format, whichever channel that you use, you can kind of access it that way.
Amazing. Fantastic. James, big thanks. Really appreciate it. It was fantastic. Guys, make sure that you take a note of that information. Reach out to James. He knows what he's talking about. He's the real deal. I know James pretty well at this stage. We, like I say, we've been working together for about 6 months or so now. But he really does know his stuff. Obviously, because of time restriction, we can't go into too much detail now. But I really encourage you, if you have questions at all, he's the man to go to for any type of advice. I can give you the fundamentals. I can teach you the basics. You want to take it to the next level. This is the guy you want to be talking to there. So, James, thanks again. Really appreciate it. We will see you all. Thanks, everybody, for joining. And we'll wrap it up at that. All right? Thanks, James. Thanks, everybody.